Hello, Booktube. As you can see, I have a guest with me. This is Sarah from the Bookish Knitter, one of my most requested guests. I leave my email on every video, so I get requests all the time and certain names crop up, and yours is one of them.
I'll take it.
But I should caution you ahead of time that because I wasn't able to finalize whether or not I was free to Zoom this morning, I'm afraid you and I are going to have to do this video without a script.
Oh Jesus, what are we gonna do?
I know.
I've never done that before.
I'm just wondering, just theoretically, do you think we'll be able to talk about romance novels without a script for 30 minutes?
I think we'll have one or two things to talk about. I have a feeling.
I did a video on my channel just the other day. Somebody sent me a box of Harlequin historical romances. And I was overjoyed, and of
I
course you were
know.
hovering over the whole video. So, a lot of questions came up in my mind in the course of that video. So
Yeah,
you seem like the
yeah.
perfect person to talk about it with. Yeah. Oh,
Oh, the Frida
she's smaller than Goran.
and the
Oh
large
no,
black cat
there he is.
is right there.
He's bigger than she is. That's just not fair. Look at the
No,
size of him.
the old man's going to sleep.
Oh,
He's 15.
good Lord.
Hmm.
Frida's not much fonder of sleep than I am. Not much. But she is very fond of lounging in bed. She
I'll see
loves
that.
lounging in bed.
Yeah.
Loves it. So this morning, 7 a.m., she was suddenly right here and sort of paying attention and wide awake, and that only means one thing. That means she has to go outside right away.
Yes.
Not being bratish about it. My basset hound used to put one of her paws over my face like dealing with an elephant seal. I suddenly couldn't breathe. She's never bratish about it, but when she does that, when she's anything other than just lounging around saying, "Oh my God, life is hard" at 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
that means she has to go outside. And to put it
Oh.
mildly, she did have to go. The minute we got outside, she did something unspeakable. but but that seems to have passed, and that's great.
Good.
We'll get the jump start on the day. Uh, but
Mhm.
if we want to talk, let's talk about Harlequin historical romances and historical romances just in general.
Sounds
Because
good.
you're kind of the go-to person to go to for that.
Yeah.
And I might point out there is one publicist at Harlequin, and there is one sub-editor at Harlequin that I know watch this channel.
Hmm.
So I might there's a person on this channel, one of those two people over the years has relatively regularly strongly suggested that maybe I take a job at Harlequin. I'm, there's a person right here. It's not going to be me. But I looked at Harlequin comes out with. Do they still come out with 4 historical novels a month?
6.
6. Okay,
6.
that's up, isn't
And
it?
I
I was
was,
aware that when I was
it's a
starting
lot.
the show, it was 4.
Yeah, no, they've bumped it to 6. It's huge. I was very lucky because I am also co-hosting a podcast with my best friend Bree called the Categorically Romance podcast, where we literally talk category romance. We have interviewed like 8 or 10 authors at this point, like her, like Tara Taylor Quinn, like some huge names. And a few weeks ago, the episode's coming in June. We interviewed the editor for the historical line, the editor for the historical line in the UK, and the stuff I learned was so amazing. It was so exciting. So
Can I
I'll share some tidbits with you guys now.
can I assume that that if the number increased, it's because there's a great appetite for historical romance?
Yes. Yep. What she explained to us was that it's huge in the UK. It's huge. Like, I don't know about you guys in the States, but you cannot buy historical books at your Walmart or your Barnes and Noble. You have to get them from the website. And that's because the market isn't as big as here in North America as it is in the UK, which is why you also no longer see Western romances for the historical line. I know I used to be a big fan of the Western, the cowboy romances, right? The cowboy historicals. You know me and cowboys. However, they're not a big seller in the UK to the UK audience, so they don't produce them anymore, sadly.
I have noticed that because there's
Hmm.
exactly one place in Boston where you can still buy Harlequin romances in a bookstore,
Hmm.
big Barnes and Noble,
Yep.
in the Prudential Center, and they have a shelf of Harlequin romances, and that changes every month. And I noticed the one they don't have is Harlequin historicals. I can't go
Yep.
in there and
Because
look
they don't
for it.
sell here. Yep.
That's kind
Which
of
is
weird.
depressing because I love them.
But I thought I don't historical fiction just in general, not romance, but just broadcloth does well in America. I would
It does, but I don't think that these do. I happen to be reading one right now. I don't think that these ones do for whatever reason, and we are trying to change that. Brie and I single handedly want to change that
Of course,
because
there's
they're
an obvious
fantastic.
candidate for why the historicals don't do well in modern day America that I hesitate to say, of course, which is that modern
I
day
know.
America is dumber than any America that has ever existed before, and that historical romances take a small amount of effort.
Yeah.
You at least have to
Yeah.
know that history happened. And if
Yeah.
you don't know that, if you've never been told that anything prior to the invention of Twitter existed at all, then why are these people dressed this way? That's what an American might ask. Why are these people dressed this way? But I don't like to
Yeah.
think that's true. I mean, historical fiction does
Mm-mm.
really well in American bookstores.
It's huge. It's huge. You look at the Julia Quinns, the Eloisa Jameses, those big names that everybody's used to, but that's where people gravitate towards. If you follow people on Instagram like I do, Steve, on Step Back Saturday, you're getting these gorgeous old historical romances with these gorgeous step backs, but you're not seeing these and they're just as good. And that just, I want to say, like, these are good too.
Yeah,
It's
not
not
just
just
in
those ones,
general,
you
but
know?
the historical line, they keep getting really good writers. I think the
Yeah.
current historicals, the ones out this month, I think Bronwyn Scott is one of their writers, and
Yes.
they're terrific.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But
She's amazing.
it's a more of a tightrope to walk now than it was in the past, isn't it? Because now we have the whole concept of cultural appropriation and
Correct.
old voices,
Correct.
and some
Correct.
of those concerns are legitimate. If you are an
Mhm.
author who is incorporating large amounts of, for instance, just off the top of my head, Asian mythology into your fantasy novels, and never acknowledging that fact, and never acknowledging maybe that you're doing it in a kind of blackface kind
Yeah.
of way, and
Yep.
yet you're making bank on it. You're making money off it. If you're doing that, that is a legitimate example of cultural appropriation where
Absolutely.
you're using something for its fake exotic air solely
Yep.
to enrich yourself without bothering to learn about it. I'm a
Mhm.
little bit less sympathetic towards the whole concept of own voices because I'm a big fan of creativity. But nevertheless, those are two elements that have worked to restrict historical romances, right? I mean,
It
we don't
has.
see
It has.
Apache romances anymore.
No, gosh, no. No, 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 no,
A
no.
lot of those step backs that you refer to are from those romances.
Those for the Fabio era, like that's what I always refer to it as.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're
Politics must
changing,
be
and the
extra
thing is,
sensitive to that, right?
well, yeah, and I understand that, but the way I look at, like, when I think about the Bridgertons, I'm wearing my Bridgerton t-shirt today. When I think about the Bridgerton show, I kind of love it. Um, like, the TV show is great, but the books themselves live in a world of fantasy. It's an alternate reality to what actually happened. Like the characters, and I think it's great that these women are taking things into their own hands, and I don't want to marry him, and whatever the trope may be in historical. However, that's not the way it went. Sadly, if you were a woman, you were the property of your father until you got married. Then you were the property of your husband. You know what I mean? So it would not have been a good time to be a woman, but they make it seem very fantastical. And that's why I say it seems like an alternate reality to what actually exists. And you've got it's a fantasy element. And my friend Bree said it perfectly. Since the pandemic, people seem to really be gravitating towards historical romances for that fantasy element. That, take me away, these beautiful ball gowns, these parties, and these dukes. There's about 3,000 dukes.
Yes, there's 3,000 dukes, and none of them are 90 years old.
No, no.
Even if before modern medicine, if you were a duke, you
Yep.
held on like a cockroach.
Oh yeah.
Your heir. It was the same thing as Prince Charles right now. When does he
Yes.
when does he come into his full inheritance? When he's
Yeah.
90.
Yeah.
And
When
no,
she finally passes away.
finally passes away, which I have to be a long time off, and yet I'm sure you've seen the same actuarial studies that I am. The longer a happy marriage, the faster, the more likely it is that the one partner left behind will soon die.
Yeah.
There seems to
Yeah.
be a connection there. I've often hoped
It does.
that those actuarial tables would be true when it came to Deb. No, she's right on track. I
The
keep,
Energizer Bunny.
but I'm worried. Of course, I'm worried for that reason alone. Not to mention the
Yeah.
fact that the Queen is 118 years old. But oftentimes, a partner in a devoted marriage, when if the marriage is really long, when one partner goes, the other one does, and I don't think that
Yeah.
medical science quite understands that.
No, no, it's literally a heartbreak.
Yeah, it's the closest we come to the old idea of dying of heartbreak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one way or another, yes, you're right. In the fantasy world of these novels, women have agency that they did not have.
Oh
There
God,
are a
no.
million sexy young dukes when there were
Yeah.
a million sexy young dukes. And also, to name just one other factor, marriage for a young woman was often a prelude to a death sentence. Childbirth was often a
Yes.
death sentence.
Yes.
And if you
Yes.
were expected to have a child every year, you were
Hmm.
literally spinning a Russian roulette chamber every single year.
Literally. Yep.
And
Yep.
we ignore all of that stuff when when
Hmm.
we're picking up a nice, good historical romance. So what I want to know, one of the questions I have for you,
Okay.
why do you think it is that we can no longer ignore the other stuff? Why are any historic, if we're acknowledging that all historical romances are fantasies of one kind or another, then why
Hmm.
is it that there are some we can no longer do? Would it be possible, let's say, would it be in a less charged political environment, would it be possible for a really good author to write a really good Apache romance that doesn't offend anyone today?
I think if it's done properly and as long as you're not, it's the cultural stereotypes, I think, is the big thing. And as long as you stay away from that or try to as best as you can, you're walking a tightrope, and you know that, like, you know what I'm saying is that, you want to be true to the time period, but on the other hand, you don't want to offend anybody, and that's almost difficult to do because sadly, we were not good to the Native Americans. Like, sadly,
Not your
up
country
until
and not mine, where our hands are both dirty. You can't get in
exactly,
there, yeah.
exactly. You know, and I think that's the reason is that, if you're going to try to write a historically accurate portrayal, you can't without deeply offending people, which I appreciate. I wouldn't want anyone to feel bad about something, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to do, but it's even, even within, like, for example, like this one, our female lead is black. She is the daughter of a Jamaican born slave who comes to England and is, raised by a white family. And, but it's really well done so far. I'm liking it. But we're seeing a lot more of that, people of color were there. They were there too.
That's also a
you
live
know?
partner issue even today. Did you see the news from, Jane Austen birthplace? The Jane Austen Museum in England
No.
had her tea set out, and
Okay.
there was protest raised because those were tea plantations. Those were
Oh,
none of that
okay.
got there without vast systemic slavery. And
Yep.
and
Yep.
it was in Chawton, the Jane Austen, house, the
Hmm.
people who run this industry, which makes a large amount of money every year, had to issue a statement about it. That
Hmm.
there's so there's a fine line between that kind of
There.
awareness and exploitation.
Yep. Yep.
I don't.
Yep. And that's what it is. You don't want to exploit that group, like the Native Americans, for example, right?
Right.
You don't want to exploit them. So
I
yeah,
still
it's
think it's
hard. I don't think it's something that can be done again.
I think it could be done. I feel certain that in the historical record, both in Canada and the United States, especially in the Northeast, I feel
Mhm.
certain that there were what we would now call romances between
Oh, for
a
sure.
white woman, a settler woman, and
Mhm.
a native man. Or a native woman. I feel certain that that
Mhm.
happened and
Mhm.
might have ended up as much as possible being a positive experience for both. But
Absolutely.
you're getting off to the wrong foot on one of those romances if your cover model is a big, gigantic German. You
Yeah.
know, if it is Fabio and you're dressing him up as a Lakota brave,
Oh, yeah. Now you're asking for it.
yeah, you're asking for it. You're in big
You
trouble.
know, you
But yeah,
can't
I
do
think
that. You can't
you're
do
right.
that.
I think a large part of the problem with those books was not so much the the race or ethnicity of the male lead, but sort of the stereotypes of the depiction. You know,
That
often
was
in
yeah.
like for instance Apache or Cheyenne romances, often the subtext was this is a good one.
Yeah.
This guy is a good. He doesn't act like the others. He's a
Yeah.
good
He's
one.
not a savage like the rest
Right.
of them.
And that's just
Yeah, no.
so I think if you maybe abandoned that, you'd be a long
Yeah,
way towards being able to write such a thing. But
absolutely.
I get the impression that publishers just don't they just don't want to get anywhere near it.
No. No, they don't wanna touch it. They're actually one of the series that really got me into reading when I was in my late teens was have you read the People of the Earth series by the Gears?
The
Oh
gears, yeah,
my gosh, those are talk about great Native American, the people of
and
the wolf, and
yeah,
they were fabulous.
and a rare example for me, a rare example of a case where the books in the series get better the longer they are. I
Yes,
really think the
yes.
kids have it they had a genius for writing thousand-page books
Yep,
that not
yep.
everybody has. Most people, if they wanna write a thousand-page book, they just natter on. If there's one thing that you and I have no patience for, it's just nattering on. No.
We don't put up with waffling. There'll
Yes,
be no
so
waffling.
awful. Scripting, tight editing.
We stay to script, Steve, you and I.
Yes, yes. 'Cause God forbid that we would ever do a video that consists of literally nothing except waffling on, and then, as you have done and I have done, at the 20-minute mark only, we say, "I wonder if this is of any interest to anybody." It's only after 20 minutes that it occurs to us to say, I wonder," and then there's 10 more minutes to go.
I had a video that I posted back in December, which was a total off the cuff. I didn't think it's my now highest watched video. It's the one where I compared the Kobo to the Kindle, right? I have like 20,000 views on that. Whatever, right? I still get comments on it. And the other day somebody commented going, go to the 5 minute mark to bypass the innate chattering. And I'm like, I want to try back. Clearly you don't watch this channel.
No, you clearly don't. Every once in a
You
while
only got 5 minutes.
once in a while, somebody will some new a stranger will come to my channel from the
Yeah.
algorithm, and they'll leave a little comment in the comments field saying book review starts at
Here, yeah.
timestamp. And I don't even have to say anything anymore. There'll be people in the comments saying, "No, you're not familiar with this channel, are you?"
I just replied back, thank you so much for watching.
Thanks so much for watching. I've noticed that if you do an algorithm friendly subject,
Yeah.
you get those people. Like for instance, if you do
Yeah.
tech reviews, when I do the videos that I've done where I say, I'm not going to talk about books here. I'm going to talk about this new Chromebook that I got.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
get good traffic and from strangers, from people who are
Oh,
popping
I
in there.
know. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's what I mean about that. I didn't even expect to get that, but I got a lot of people thanking me for doing it. And then a lot of people commented going, well, this isn't a tech review. Clearly not. Have you seen me? I don't do tech.
No, but people love those videos when booktubers like us do them because they've already learned the how much and in what ways they can trust us.
Exactly.
You know, whereas with
Exactly.
a pure tech channel, you don't know who's buying their time. You don't know who's
No,
paying for anything. So there
no.
isn't you might trust their technical expertise, but there's an element of not knowing whether or not to believe them.
But which is the same thing with all the sponsored stuff. I mean, to get off on a totally different tangent, like a lot of the sponsored stuff, I just think you're being paid to say this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Whereas
know?
oddly enough, ironically enough, paradoxically enough, I have a feeling now that on either one of our channels, if either one of us actually did a sponsorship, I honestly think nobody that watches us regularly would bat an eye.
No.
Like, for instance, what would happen if, again, I'm addressing two particular people in the audience. What would happen if you did a Harlequin sponsorship? Is there anybody who watches your channel who would think, well, okay, she read this recent release and didn't like it, but she's saying she did because she was ordered to?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who watches your channel who would think that. And the same thing with me. Although I don't
Yeah.
get offers. I don't know where I watch these Booktube channels that have, 500 subscribers, and they talk about how they have offers in their inbox. I don't get offers.
Yeah.
Why? I don't
No.
at all.
No.
Nobody ever does that for me. I don't know why that is.
No.
I'd like just the luxury of turning them down. But I
No.
have about historical romance.
Yes. Oh, back to the subject. Yeah. Okay.
I like I said, I'm not sure how we're going to do this without a script, and I'm also not sure how we're going to stretch this thing out to 30 minutes. Good Lord.
Minutes. Oh my gosh.
It's much like mine. You're watching that clock to get to the monetization limit, and then you're off. No, but I do occasionally want to get back to the actual subject.
Topic. Yeah, I know.
And one of the questions I have for you as an inveterate romance reader deals with those older romances, like, for instance, both the Native American romances that are now
Mhm.
totally verboten, or, for instance, a lot of early Viking romances wouldn't have
Yes.
cultural appropriation issues, but they would very much have what we would call consent issues.
Yes.
Great number of those early Viking romances, the
Mhm.
first sexual encounter with the man and the woman is not consensual.
No, it's not.
And my question, of course, that element, Viking romances still happen. I think Harlequin has one this month.
Yes. Yeah,
Uh,
they're huge. They're
but that
huge.
element is gone completely from them.
Yes. Yes.
What
Yes.
I want to know, one of the questions that I have for you, whether it's with Native American romances or that kind of, Scottish lord or Viking
Mhm.
romances, can you still read those books and enjoy them? You yourself.
Oh, you take it with a grain of salt, right? Like you understand that this isn't, but the thing that gets me is that I hear a lot of people complain about that very issue, oh, this is whatever. But yet, some of the biggest sellers, or sellers, if you will, on Kindle Unlimited are these taboo romances that deal specifically with forced confinement, dubious consent. So, how is that okay that these authors are writing these and putting them out there in Kindle Unlimited? People are gobbling them up. But yet, if I was to read like you said, one of those old Viking romances and mention the fact that the consent is non existent, oh, well, then how could you read such a thing? What's the difference?
Well, what
You
is the
know,
difference? What do you think explains that? Is it just a matter of visibility?
I think so.
That if
I
you're
think
buying
so.
something on Kindle, you're anonymous, you're free to do it without anyone
Yes.
knowing
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah. But whereas if you have a physical copy of something, I know there's a book I have on my shelf by my beloved Heather Graham, who I love. She wrote this back in like the late 80s, early 90s, and it's a Civil War. Our main female lead is a slave owner, and she's not the nicest person. She's a bit of a witch with a capital B. And she's having relations with a uh Confederate. I don't know American history. He fought for the South,
Yeah,
right? And
Confederate.
she goes
Or
out
in
through the
my
entire book
vocabulary,
going,
traitor.
yeah, I'm a good slave owner. I treat my slaves well. This was her attitude throughout the book. And people have panned it. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying. However, it's a really good story.
So you're able to distinguish that.
Yeah, you are. You acknowledge the fact that no, these things I don't agree with. However, overall, this is a good story. Do I agree with the way she thinks? No, because I'm my own person. I have my own brain. I can think for myself that I know this is right and wrong. Like, and I feel that a lot of, and I shouldn't generalize, but there are a number of booktubers who will. I remember when Outlander got big, when the TV show, I remember watching this very big booktuber holding up going, this book is horrible. She gets raped, he gets raped, there's beatings, there's this, there's that. Are you kidding me? It was 1700s in Scotland. They weren't all just dancing the jig, like.
And also, like you say, it's a terrific story.
Oh my God.
You know,
That story.
you could raise the same split, the same dichotomy could be raised against Gone with the Wind.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And I guess the question here is, are we raising a generation of readers who don't make that, who aren't able to do that anymore? Who I can't help but
Who
notice
don't
the demographics of the people who say, "Don't read this," and the demographics are young.
Yes.
People who are saying,
Yes.
"Don't read this because it offends me," are young. They are
Yep.
not old.
Yep. Yep.
That
Yep.
worries me. That worries me very much, especially since Heather Graham is only one example of authors who have changed over time.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Wouldn't write that sort of stuff anymore, and it wouldn't be because their publisher
No.
tells her not to. It'd be because she sees that it's wrong.
She's grown as an author, and like it it just it's this whole cancel culture aspect that because I don't like it, you all shouldn't like it either. There's no thinking for yourself anymore. And I understand that, like Gone with the Wind, that's one of my favorite books of all time. I love that story so much. And it's not a romance. I will argue that it's a romance. However, I do know it's rife with problems. It's very problematic. It's extremely problematic. But what a good story. Like,
So I think you and I would probably agree that the ability to do that is a skill that readers should have. Otherwise, they're going to miss it.
yes, yes, yes.
I don't know though. Are there examples that are beyond the pale? I'm trying to remember. There was a romance, an older romance from around the Fabio era. I
Mhm.
can't remember the author, but I remember the romance very well because it was in the pre-Civil War South.
Okay.
Big luscious plantation, weeping willows,
Yes.
mimosas on the porch and whatnot. And it had a protagonist like the one you described. She was
Hmm.
a widower, she was a slave owner, she owned her own property. She was very
Yep.
strong-willed, could be seen as slightly flinty, just
Hmm.
a bit of a witch with a capital B. And in this novel, and this was a almost want to say it was a gem novel, one of those ones that had the little hologram up in the.
Yes. Yes.
I almost
Yes.
want to say it was as late as that. That would have been what, the mid '80s,
I think so. Yeah.
late '80s,
Yeah.
something like that. But in this
Yeah.
novel, maybe you'll know it. She, the romance, and she has a man that her family wants her to marry, and he
Of
is the
course.
usual thing. He's handsome and boring.
Yeah.
She has a love interest in the book, and it's a black man who is one of her slaves.
Okay.
And I, I, they have. He tries to introduce her to his way of viewing the world, and the book is passionately written. And I remember even back decades ago when our consciousness had not been raised to these issues, I
Sure.
remember reading that book and thinking, I was like 30 pages in, then I was 70 pages in, then I was 200 pages in. And I was thinking the whole time, all right, this is very involving. There's an extra plot,
Hmm.
there's a subplot that ratchets up the tension. But I remember reading
Yep.
that and thinking the whole time, okay, but you are going to free him at the end of the
Yeah.
book, right? And she doesn't. She doesn't. The book ends with him still her property.
Oh my goodness.
And that made me thinking. I'm trying to remember what that book was. It's
Yeah,
probably
I
very
can't.
intentional that I can't remember. Probably the publisher.
Yeah.
Nobody's know what that is. But surely that is an example of something that can't be rehabilitated, right?
No.
That's the case where
No.
no matter how good the story is, that
No. No. Because you need to have that ending. Like, you can have the problematic parts in it, but the ending has to have some sort of resolution, some sort of happily ever after for, like, and yeah, I no, I if she didn't free him, no. That's
so
not
so
appropriate.
can you reveal? I mean, are you allowed to talk about the philosophy that Harlequin has towards these things now?
Well, I can tell you from speaking to the editor that they have actually, the one big thing is that because we've hit 2020, they've actually upped the decade that they will allow writers to write up to. So now it's the space race, which is
No kidding.
very exciting.
Oh,
Yes.
man. The
Yes.
line
So
is
we're very excited.
years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's as far back as they'll go. And they are really pushing for more diverse storytelling. there's a book, I can't remember the name of it. I'll send it to you in an email and you can post it below after or whatever, if you can do that, or I'll put it in the comments. That comes out in August, and it's about a jazz singer in, I think it's Harlem in the 1920s or something. And I'm just, Bree was ecstatic, I'm ecstatic. So we're seeing a lot more of that. But the big thing still is Regency. Regency is huge. It lasted 9 years. How is it so big?
I know. It was barely an eye blink.
I know. And I know that you, like, when you open that box, oh yeah.
I wonder.
The Tudor book.
Part of that is certainly Bridgerton, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And whatever Bridgerton clones come along down the line. I'm sure that every
Yes.
major Regency romance author hopes that their series. What would be your foremost candidate?
For the next Bridgerton?
What would you like to see adapted from modern Regencies? For me, hands down, it would be Sabrina Jeffries. Hands down.
Yes, yes, yes. Or the Wild in Love series by Eloisa James.
That's got to be the #1 fan demand.
Yeah.
The Wild books have got to be the #1 fan demand. Although, even in central casting Hollywood, are there enough hunks to cover the sheer number of hunks in those books?
Just hire the cover models. They don't have to act. They just have to stand there.
Boy, though, what a refreshing thing it was for the gorgeous himbo eye candy in Bridgerton to also be able to act. How wonderful that is. You don't have to just have them standing there. All the men in that series act fantastically.
Oh gosh, the Bridgerton brothers. I'll take Anthony any day.
Although, when it comes to live on-screen action like that, the wary is the one thing that won't override matters in a novel, which is charisma. What do you do if you have, a family of Bridgerton brothers? What do you do if the younger, slightly chubby, more intellectual one has amazing charisma? What do you do if you're filming that and suddenly all the women in your audience are saying, well, yeah, the pretty ones are nice, but it's the bookworm I want. That tends not to happen on the printed page because you're in more control.
Yeah.
That would be a worry, I would think. I can think of a couple of romance characters that might carry the day.
Yes.
I've read so many Regency romances where
I know
the strapping lead rides his horses and has his business affairs and whatnot, and he has a nerdy brother who studies the stars.
Yes.
The nerdy brother would be the hit if they were. No one would care. They would care about it because the nerdy brother would also be gorgeous. Of course, those romances always make a point of saying
always
gorgeous.
Always. But yeah, I love Bridgerton. I really loved the show. I thought they did a fantastic job on the casting. My only concern is going into season 2 is for those who have read the books, they pulled so much from the other books into that. Like, what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
You've already pretty much explained who Lady Whistledown is. That never came out until like the 4th book. And I was angry when they showed who it was. I was actually angry. Like, what are you doing?
Well, my contention with these things is that they should be planned to have an ending, and it should be one season. I can't help but think the thrill of amazement, of just sheer, oh my God, how good did they get this for Bridgerton season 1? There's no way that will carry over to season 2.
No.
And that's actually my idea with a lot of things. I mentioned on my channel just recently the TV series about The Last Ship, a novel about a destroyer that's the only thing left alive after a nuclear exchange. And they dragged it on, and they shouldn't have. I think anything it pays off, even The Expanse, which I love. And I love that there's so much of it. I still think it might have been more powerful if it had been compressed. But getting back to our subject. So the Harlequin editorial team has obviously sat down and had the conversations like the one we're having right now. What kinds of romances can we do? And what kinds can't we do? Yes?
Yep. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like from talking to the editor. Like I said, because the historicals don't sell as well in North America, that's why they actually say if you go on the Write for Harlequin website, Like if you're an aspiring author, there's a whole website for Harlequin that you can see what each individual line is looking for, word count, all that good stuff. And it says blatantly for the historicals, we do not want Westerns. But what they will take is Western adjacent. So like Gold Rush, they'd be interested in reading Gold Rush stuff, but not the American West, which I did love. I really did. But it's very much an American concept. It doesn't travel well to the rest of the world, this American West concept, right? So thinking about it personally after I talked to her, after we had our chat with her, that there is, they are bringing back, so there's the Love Inspired line from Harlequin, which is their faith-based line, right? So they're bringing back their historical part of it. Those are very, very much American West. But that's because those books are only published in North America. They're not published in the rest of the world.
What do you mean by
It's
that?
an interesting.
You mean there'll be historical love inspired?
Yes, yes. So faith-based historicals.
What would that be? I mean, what would be the raw material for that? I'm trying to think. It wouldn't be missionaries. Obviously, it wouldn't be missionaries.
No.
So
no, they had it years ago. They did have a line. It didn't last for very long, but it dealt with mostly like people on the plains or what have you who would, these mail order brides. Like he's a priest or a preacher in town and needs a wife. That kind of an idea. But some of them even went back to biblical times, like had biblical. And I was like, okay.
any ancient at all in the historical line?
It's very rare. There have been some. I've seen some historicals, Harlequin historicals, that dealt with Egypt, ancient Egypt.
I'm amazed that there would be more. From what we know about ancient Egyptian society, I'm surprised that it hasn't attracted more attention, just for the slightly greater degree of parity between the genders. Egyptian women had, in some ways, a degree of freedom that wouldn't be experienced in the West for 3,000 years.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if maybe the reason for that is because even to write a passable ancient Egyptian romance, you have to do a lot more research. I don't know.
That's probably it.
But what about that How to Write for Harlequin? That's not an empty gesture, right? They take people.
They have a call out right now that they're looking for LGBTQ stuff. They have a call out right now. Mills and Boom in the UK, which is Harlequin in the UK, has a call out this weekend, I think, for submissions for that. So I mean, they like, even the editor said to us, she wants people to send them stuff. They do. They really, really want people to send them stuff.
And they're very good to their authors, aren't they? There's a great deal of loyalty there. I've read interviews with mainstream romance authors who say, yeah, the New York Times best-selling list is great, but boy, oh boy, do I miss those days when I was with an outfit, an imprint that really cared about what I was doing. And a greater degree, I can't help but think a greater degree of contact with the readers.
Yes.
Don't readers tend to feel more of a personal possession with category romances?
You know what? I was amazed when Brie and I decided to start the podcast and we started reaching out to authors. We thought, okay, we're probably gonna have to go through publicists. I literally on Instagram messaged an author and like, hey, are you interested? Yes, absolutely. Let me know when. Like, it just blows my mind. And you get invested because they bring out.
That's not avarice, right? That's that they want to connect with their readers.
Yes. They're all so excited to be on the podcast. They're so excited. Because the thing is that I think because they don't get the recognition that they deserve. They're writing for category, so maybe they're not hitting the New York Times bestseller list. But there are legions of fans who love their stuff and they want a platform to talk about it. So that's kind of what we've done, right?
Vast audience, right? It has a vast audience.
They've been around over 70 years. Like, clearly Harlequin is doing something right.
But when you say there's a call out for gay romances, could that be historical as well? I'm
wondering. I would be very interested. And Cat Sebastian opened the door for that, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. Very much so. And again, with Cat Sebastian, you have to go into it acknowledging the elements of fantasy. You have to do that. If you go in with a history professor's, abacus,
Yeah.
You won't enjoy it at all. You
No.
can't do that with any historical romances, almost
No.
any historical
No.
romances. I like
And
to
of
believe
course
there
it
were
happened.
some people in history who were happily married. I
Yeah.
like to believe that.
One or two.
One of- yes.
Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip was pretty much about it.
Well, also some love matches. There were some famous
There
love
were.
matches that I think were real. I honestly think
Yeah.
that, for
Yeah.
instance, Chaucer's patron and
Mhm.
his wife were in love. I honestly believe they loved each other. It was rare enough. Of course, it's going to be rare if the whole material of matrimony is mercantile.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's all economic, then of course that element is going to be rare.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, they're still enjoyable at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned. And I love them.
I think the reality was probably. Did you ever see uh, Lady Jane, the historical movie with Helena Bonham Carter?
No, I haven't seen
And a
that.
very young Carrie Elwes.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh,
if you think he's in The Princess Bride, you should find him in this movie.
I've never seen The Princess Bride. I know.
Well, okay, Booktube. That is Steve being struck speechless. Awful.
I know. I know.
What?
I will watch it this weekend and I'll report back.
I don't know of a single adult in the Western Hemisphere of a certain age, male or female, who didn't reach sexual maturity when Carrie always is tortured in the Princess Bride. That scene did it for all of them. That scene and the moment when Indiana Jones flicks the brim of his hat in
Yes.
those two moments.
Yeah.
There was a sound that went all the way around the Western world, all in unison, achieving puberty. And you haven't seen that scene. What on earth?
I'm not a movie watcher. I've never seen Star Wars, any of them. Yeah, not one. My wedding ring is Star Wars related. My husband is a Star Wars fanatic, and I've never seen a Star Wars movie. Never.
You've never seen the original Star Wars movie?
No, never seen them. No. I get the premise. Hey, I've watched Spaceballs like 1,000 times. That should totally count. I get the gist of it.
There is no more quintessentially okay boomer thing to say in the world than to say, I've never seen Star Wars, but I get the premise.
I get the premise.
Oh. Well, this Zoom chat took a dark turn.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's Friday. You have time this weekend to watch both Star Wars and
I'm off today too. Yeah, that's my homework for the weekend is the first Star Wars movie and The Princess Bride.
It's a shame that you can't see the first Star Wars movie. I don't think you can see it anymore without the enhanced special effects.
I'm not sure. My husband or my brother might have like a special. They've got all the stuff, right? So
the thing is, they would have to have kept it. You can't buy it anymore. George Lucas destroyed it. He made sure that those versions weren't available anymore. So you have to have your old VHS tape in order to watch Star Wars
dust it off
without intrusive special effects.
Yeah.
Somebody ought to talk to George Lucas and other creative people about how it's not yours anymore. You know, once you release it into the world, it's not yours anymore. You can't go back and tinker.
So, no.
Well, so when are we going to talk again? I know that's going to be
here.
When are we going to have another one of these chats about romance?
Whenever you want. I'm free.
There's a lot of ground we didn't cover because we were busy digressing into other ground.
Well, we'll have to ask people, what do they want to hear about? What topics do you guys want us to talk about?
Yes, if we were to have these chats, what do you want us to talk about? You just know, though, that 50% of the responses are going to have nothing to do with romance. They're going to be just talk. Just talk about anything. This is so much fun.
We'll talk about Frida and Goran.
Yes, talk about Frida and Goran. Look at the size of them. Good Lord. I forgot that he was that old.
Yeah.
But
It's
that's
okay.
not as if that were a dog, then you would be talking about the imminent end of his life. But with a cat, he could have another 8 years left, right?
We had a cat that lived to be 23.
Yeah, I hear that all the
Hmm.
time. Cats that regularly break the 20-year mark,
Yep.
whereas dogs don't do that.
Especially if they're indoor cats. Sorry, my own public service announcement. Please, cats are not meant to be outdoors. They're meant to be inside. They could get hit by a car. It just breaks my heart when I see outdoor cats. It does, unless they're barn cats. That's different. If you live on
Yeah,
a farm, that's a
I was
different
gonna make
ball.
a shout out to all my Iowa peeps that barn cats
Yeah,
are different, but and not
yeah,
only that, but because they do have shelter and
yeah,
a regular supply of food. It's not the
yeah.
same thing. I've never understood
No,
people who
like
say,
in a city.
yeah, I've never got that at all. People say, I
Mm-mm.
love my cats, and then let them out at night. Oh,
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
probably be back. Well, what on earth? What if grade school for your kids was like that? Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna send you off, and you'll probably come back. Nobody would do that. And
We.
routinely, the people who say that I know in this neighborhood, routinely,
Yep.
a week later, I will see one of those pathetic posters up saying missing, you know,
Cat.
with a picture. We really miss her. Well,
Yeah.
you, you really miss her, but you live in a neighborhood that has feral cats. It has hawks.
Yep.
It has cars and trucks.
Raccoons.
Raccoon.
God knows what. Although we figure if we let Gorin out, he would pretty much rule the neighborhood by the end of the week. He'd be like, yeah, I'm taking names.
No, ordinarily when I get to that number with a dog, I'm preparing to say goodbye. I don't know what that would be like, having never had a cat. I've only had one
Yeah.
dog that lived a very, very long time. I had a beagle who lived to be 23.
Oh
That
wow.
is unheard of.
Yeah.
He outlasted his litter, and then
Wow.
he outlasted just chronologically another litter. He's
Wow.
outlived two groups of dogs of mine. And just
Yeah, yeah.
he just kept going and going and going. No health problems, no nothing.
Oh, no, I keep very close eye on him. He's got his asthma, so we deal with his asthma, but other than that, he's
Although
okay.
sometimes when you hear your descriptions, it sounds more like he keeps a close eye on you.
He does. He does. I literally, and I know, I don't know what I'd do without him because I've had him for so long. You know, I knew him before I had my husband. I'd get rid of the husband first before.
I am
It's been fun, dear.
surprised
See you later.
that you have the option. If your husband knows that you've never seen Star Wars, I'm surprised that he's on
Oh, he
Craigslist
knows.
right now. Wow, that is the ultimate deal breaker.
And he is he is, you should have seen our basement. It was like wall to wall Star Wars memorabilia. He bought one of the custom made lightsabers. He had a 6 foot tall Darth Vader at one point. Like I said, our wedding rings are Star Wars related. We were watching one of those programs years ago, those wedding shows where they show people getting married. So the one was the couple comes into the reception hall and everybody's holding up lightsabers like this and they walk through them. And Garrett just turns and looks at me and I'm like, no.
Yeah. So if your basement was full of Star Wars stuff, then you're saying it very much resembled the Mos Eisley Cantina?
Yeah. I do know what some of these things are. I am familiar because of him, but I just have never seen the movies.
I get the premise.
I understand the premise. Like I said, I've seen Spaceballs. I get it. I know. Dark Helmet.
Up until this moment, people watching this video were mostly on your side. And all that goodwill has gone away.
I've lost all credibility now.
All the Star Wars fans are they don't know how to understand it. If you say, I've never seen Star Wars, they don't know how to
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah,
Star Trek
I don't.
are better equipped for that because Star Trek never really crossed over the way Star Wars did into just dominating the pop culture.
And the funny thing is I know Star Trek because every night at 6 o'clock after dinner, we would sit and my father would watch Star Trek. As you called it, the boring generation.
Yes, yes. Unfortunately,
He loved it.
there's a giant space creature attacking the Enterprise and draining energy from the warp nacelles. What should we do? Perhaps a meeting. Let's have a meeting in my ready room. In my discussion room. I have a room for discussions. I've actually seen some Next Generation fans try to say that Kirk must have had a discussion room that we just never saw. The sacrilege! Kirk never discussed anything in his life. Talk about consent issues.
I know.
So that was a regular routine for you. Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Every,
Oh wow.
and then it would be followed by Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
Oh my.
I can't think of Star Trek and not think of my dad, to be honest. It was that ingrained that we had ornaments for the Christmas tree that were Star Wars or Star Trek related. He loved Star Trek. He was more of a Trekkie than a Star Wars fan. Yep.
Yeah, Mark Richardson has a bunch of Star Trek Christmas tree ornaments.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because you'll be talking to this, this guy who's read a million books and who is a professional, the
Yep.
director of his library, and there'll be that persona. But then when
Yep.
the Star Trek Christmas tree ornaments come out, all of a sudden there's this element of, oh, okay, well, right, well, I'm also a super geek.
Yeah.
I have to admit, they're the
And that's
coolest things in
okay.
the world. They're the coolest things in the world to see.
Oh yeah. They're we still have them in boxes in the basement, and I'll take them eventually because they were dad's.
I was never able to have things like that. My dogs are not well behaved, and they never have been. They get to do what they want. So I was
Yep.
never able to have little game cracks like that. Not stuff that literally low hanging fruit, where it would just be a game
Yeah.
who could get it.
Yep.
I wouldn't have bothered.
We've never had a cat who's tried to climb the tree. Never had a cat that's tried to climb the tree.
I thought they
Never.
all did.
Goran would just look at it and it would fall over. So, but we do have little felt ornaments that hang on the bottom if they want to play with them, but never the climbing of the tree. Never.
I see videos on Twitter
Oh,
and
yeah.
on YouTube all the time.
Yep.
Cats that waste
Yep.
no time. The tree is up, even they climb it even before it's decorated.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nope, not my guys. They know better.
Well, let's wrap this up for now and
Yes.
make another one of these. So let's put you. That's a great idea. Let's put the question: what do you
Yep.
all want us to talk about?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
if you're up for living dangerously and having another unscripted episode,
I think I can do it. I think we can do it.
I don't know. Can we stretch something out? Maybe we should write out bullet points so that
We should. That's a great idea, Steve. Which we totally ignore anyway.
we totally ignored in the course of the conversation because there's so much else to talk about. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Frida is down on the floor, so she wants to go out. But
Very
this is
good.
wonderful as always.
Thank you.
So I will see you in the funny papers, as my generation used to say. We will
Yes.
watch each other, and we'll have another one of these chats soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Booktube.
Good night to Goran.
Yes. Bye, everybody.